You're listening to the Stanley Angler, and my daddy's the host.
All right, well, special thanks to my sweetheart for the introduction, and welcome to the Sustainable Angler, the podcast where we discuss the intersection of fishing, conservation, and sustainability. I'm your host, Rick Crawford. In this episode, I'm joined by Belvin Olasov, the director at Charleston Climate Coalition, a nonprofit grassroots group of low-country citizens working creatively and compassionately to accelerate solutions to the climate crisis. In this episode, we discuss how their work has been instrumental in creating climate action plans for the town of James Island in Charleston County, as well as building rain gardens and planting native plants, and advocating for better transportation infrastructure like adding more bike lanes downtown. But we mostly focus on their efforts to oppose the construction of the Dominion Energy and Santee Cooper proposed methane gas plant on the Edisto River and pipelines running through the Basin National Wildlife Refuge. For those of you unfamiliar, the Basin is one of the largest undeveloped wetland systems remaining on the Atlantic coast. And this project would be disastrous for the climate as it would emit a massive amount of greenhouse gas emissions and emit tons of particulate matter, which is harmful for humans and wildlife, like the red-cockaded woodpecker, southern bald eagle, wood stork, loggerhead turtles, and shortnose sturgeon, all of which live in the Basin. Building a methane gas megaproject and putting pipelines through a national wildlife refuge is not only just ridiculous, but it's 20th century thinking. Every country in the world is moving forward with renewable energy and electric vehicles, not to mention that this project will cost billions of dollars. And guess who's going to pay for it? That's right, you and me, the ratepayers. If you do nothing else today, please visit charlestonclimatecoalition.org and sign their petition to oppose this expensive, dangerous, and unnecessary methane gas plant. The Sustainable Angler is available anywhere you listen to podcasts and is also airing Saturdays at 2 p.m. on Charleston's first and only community-supported radio station, Ohm Radio, 96.3 FM. And if you like what you're hearing, an absolutely free way to show your support is by leaving the show a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. This episode of the Sustainable Angler podcast is brought to you by Emerger Strategies and A New Earth Project, the sustainability initiative of Atlantic Packaging. Fishing taught me that everything in nature is interconnected. Just as a fiddler crab, a tailing redfish, and a marsh ecosystem are connected, so are our businesses and our planet, and we have a vision of businesses and the environment thriving together. Imagine a company that not only champions the sport of fishing, but also leads on climate action and conservation efforts. Products and packaging that are friendly to marine life and that degrade harmlessly back into the earth. It's not a dream, it's a strategy. And that's what we do at Emerger Strategies. We guide businesses on their sustainability journey by helping them measure and improve the sustainability performance of their operations, products, and packaging, all while boosting profits. Because when nature thrives, we all thrive. Together, we can make a difference for generations to come. Visit our website at emergerstrategies.com. Let's protect what we love together.
We We set out with a New Earth project to really start a movement.
It's a global coalition of people who are deeply concerned and want to accelerate the transition away from problematic packaging to more sustainable solutions.
Our entire value proposition was built on helping companies package things better. We were doing sustainability before sustainability was cool. We just called it packaging optimization. And packaging optimization really is about using less. And we built our whole business on that. You know, people send us their products, their goods, and we help them design packaging systems and solutions for the least possible cost, utilizing the least amount of material. Use less is always the right answer.
And that's what I see with companies like a New Earth Project is it's like, we're just trying to create solutions for big companies and small, that makes it easier for them, cheaper for them, whatever it is, and then has less impact. Not just trying to tell people you should have less impact and making the choice forced on them. Like, make it better for everybody, and it'll make it better for the whole world.
We see the problem, and we are with you.
Well, Belvin, for listeners out there who don't know anything about Charleston Climate Coalition, I thought we would get started with just a bit of background and info on CCC, and then we'll talk a little bit more about how you decided to start that and all that fun stuff. So, why don't we get it kicked off, a little background on the coalition?
Yeah, so the Charleston Climate Coalition has been around since 2019, and I would describe it as the Charleston grassroots climate activism group. The idea is, we want to be taking the most effective action we can on climate change from where we are in what is one of the most climate vulnerable cities in the U.S., Charleston, South Carolina. And we want to do it in a way that is building a movement that's activating all sorts of folks, sort of channeling the energy of the many, many people who live here, care about this place and this land, want to do something, but aren't entirely sure what to do, or need to be with a wave of other people to do it. So that's sort of the theory of change with Charleston Climate Coalition, is that, in this city that is uniquely endangered, we could be leaders in climate action. We could be a city that the rest of the Southeast looks to as, we can do what Charleston is doing. In some ways, the city's kind of there in terms of adaptation, some resilience work, some flooding work. But in terms of climate pollution reduction, I think that we have a ways to go. And that's sort of the work that we focus on with the Charleston Climate Coalition.
Cool. Much and much needed. And I think that I don't know. I think I first maybe came across the work that y'all were doing when it was related to helping, or at least providing education and awareness about different climate action plans, with Charleston County and James Island. Can you talk a little bit about y'all's involvement with that? I mean, y'all certainly, because of y'all, I found out about that. Otherwise, I may not have.
Yeah. So when we started, we were just a grassroots group of people who care about climate, realized that there are good environmental groups here in Charleston doing really good work that affects the climate, but no one that was sort of focused on, the climate action. So we were like, okay, if we want the municipalities and counties of Charleston to be leaders, first step towards taking action is having a plan, sort of setting up the things to do and then doing those things. And sometimes even before that, you need a resolution. That was sort of the theory of change, is in a town or city that has not acknowledged climate at all, let's get a climate resolution passed. Let's get them to pass a resolution saying climate change is an issue, because that is not a universally agreed upon fact. And then once they've done that, including that resolution, we try to get them to commit to a community-based climate action plan. And then we want them to create that plan. So the climate action categories, as I think about them, from Project Drawdown, which is a wonderful consortium of scientists who have calculated the most effective climate actions, we just copied their categories. So you have buildings, transportation, energy, waste, carbon sinks, aka nature, and food. So those sort of 6 systems are highly relevant to any municipality, any local body. And there are all sorts of different actions that can be taken. So the climate action plans we push for sort of integrate all of those. And then the work is actually following up and making sure that they are then doing the actions that are helping move the needle, both on reducing greenhouse gas pollution and on making the city a better place. Because if you aren't sort of winning a better world as you do it, you're not going to have the public support and momentum you need to keep it going. So we started with James Island, and we got James Island to pass a climate resolution. And that led to them installing solar panels on 2 of their major municipal buildings, which was a win. Awesome. we participated with the city of Charleston in their climate action plan. I will say they already sort of had that ball rolling. We didn't prompt them to make the plan, but then we sat on multiple committees, helped make as effective a plan as we could. And since then, we have been pushing to make sure that the actions are being followed up on and funded properly. And with Charleston County, that's kind of a feather in our cap of our first big win was getting Charleston County to pass a climate action resolution. And it wasn't easy. The sustainability manager at the time quit because of all the pushback that he had been getting in that process, just internally, in terms of saying that climate change is primarily caused by the activities of humans and by greenhouse gases. That was a controversial thing. Yeah. But we got the resolution passed, and that resolution called for a climate action plan. And then Charleston County got consultants to build out this really, I would say, thorough and effectively researched climate action plan. And last year, we had a campaign to get over the finish line, get it actually passed, and we did. And so now there's a sustainability manager with the Charleston County that is working on climate action map and getting balls rolling. The chair of Charleston County's council, Kyle Middleton, has been a real champion of the plan. So that's sort of an arena, and so many of our work, so many of our campaigns is with partners, it's with other people who are also carrying this torch. I would say, climate action plans are probably the place where we are the more central carriers of the torch, just because it is solely within our domain of let's pay attention to climate pollution.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love that, and I think it's really powerful for anyone listening who's like, well, what can I do? That's like always the question. Everyone wants to know, like, well, what can I do? And it's like, well, here's an example and a blueprint for climate action wherever you live, right? It's resolution, collaborate with different environmental, probably nonprofits and other community stakeholders to create a climate action plan and then hold their feet to the fire. I mean,
and then do the projects.
Yeah. That's great. And I love it too.
Yeah.
Like the James Island that they already put solar on their roof. Like I think that people, the way that I look at that is when I lived in Jackson Hole, we were supporting a special purpose excise tax for energy efficiency. And the slogan was, it pays you back. And it's like, government municipalities should absolutely be reducing their operating expenses because it's taxpayer dollars, and energy efficiency, renewable energy, that contributes to it. So I didn't know that James Island had already done that. So that's really cool.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I enjoy about this work is that when you are on the hyper local level, talking municipalities and just your local county, you can get support. 100 people showing up to a council meeting is a sliver of the population of that place, but every council member is, what's going on? Oh, everyone's mad. Why are they mad? You can really actually make change, which is, what we get into this for.
Yeah, that's cool. So Belvin, what is how did the Charleston Climate Coalition, how was that born? What's your background? How did you get involved with advocacy? Let's hear that side of the story.
Yeah, let's hear the origin story.
Yeah.
So I went to school for English. My background is in writing, and actually creative writing was sort of my main interest area, but I also really cared about environmental issues. And I came back home after school at the University of South Carolina to be with my dad, who was sick. And after he passed away, I really wanted to do something. I really wanted to be contributing in some way. And climate change was sort of no one's talking about this issue. This was 2018. I think if you look at the arc of climate consciousness, it peaked right after that. But there was this long period where I think it was just sort of more pushed to the subconscious level of our society. And so I went looking for a climate activism group to join and was so surprised that I could not find one. That Charleston, South Carolina, of all places, did not have just a climate action group, no Sunrise or 350 or, no branch of any of those bigger ones. But there were environmental groups. So I volunteered with the Coastal Conservation League.
Yeah.
I did some work with Betsy LaForce there. Betsy suggested I go to the Climate Reality Leadership Corps training, Climate Reality being Al Gore's group.
Okay.
And so this was a training in Atlanta that was environmental justice focused. It was really excellent. And a group of us from Charleston had gone. So we got back and suddenly we have a list of people who care about climate. We have that sort of base. And then when Greta Thunberg was sort of gathering some momentum for a global climate strike in 2019, I was talking to some people saying we should do something in Charleston. We have to represent for this global climate strike. And a group of us came together and we put on a rally, the Climate Crisis Moment, a march, and then a week of workshops after. And it went really, really well. It got great attendance. The mayor was there. Queen Quet was there. It was really effective. It went great. And I had been sort of pointed to and said, you should lead this. You're young, because it was a youth focused. At the time, I was 23, 24.
Yeah.
And then after it went so well, we said, let's keep the momentum going. Let's make this an actual continuous presence in Charleston, this climate activism group. So we coined ourselves the Charleston Climate Coalition, because we knew we had to work with as many people as possible. There are already groups doing good work in transportation and land defense and all that. We want to, not reinvent the wheel, just be a coalition working with these people, focus on climate.
Yeah.
And since then, I have served as co-director and for a couple of years now, just director of the Charleston Climate Coalition. And we have kept on trucking.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, and so needed, and I like y'all's approach, and I think that I think that the climate effects, and I have shared this a lot on the podcast, but I think it's important. That's why I share it a lot. So I'll just tell you from my experience, like my climate story in Charleston specifically, that seems to resonate the most is that my daughter was going to preschool downtown at a church, and I'll have gotten rerouted on sunny days because the streets were flooded from sea level rise. Like, that is the most real climate story that it's like, I'm like, what? There's not a cloud in the sky. Like, this is not from rain. This wasn't rain during high tide. Like, granted, it was the moon phase, but like that much water without rain, like causing flooding, that's sea level rise. So like it's a real thing. So like those are sea level rise is a threat here, but I'm curious to hear from your perspective, what do you see as in terms of climate threats that we face here in Charleston?
Right. So sea level rise, classic one. You look at any projected chart of just sunny day flooding in the city of Charleston, and by the year 2050, it is a really hard city to live in. We're going to have to do a lot infrastructure wise to have it be livable, because we are this low-lying coastal city. To me, the most visceral climate crisis effect is extreme weather, because hurricanes are just already an unfortunate fact of life if you're living in the coastal region. But what climate change does is it makes these hurricanes more unpredictable. It makes them become much stronger, much faster. And when it comes to reducing human harm, that's sort of the worst thing, is when you think it's going to be fine, then it's not fine. That's when people really get hurt and caught. And it's just a thing where hurricanes feed off of warm water that powers them up. And so we have warmer and warmer waters every year. That's more and more powerful and unpredictable hurricanes. Helene last year really unsettled me, frankly. I, as someone who is immersed in climate news and the realities of climate change, still felt sort of taken aback by Asheville, which is, listed as a top 10 climate refuge and all these lists of like the safe places from climate change effects. Horrible, horrible effects from this storm. It really drove home how we are just increasingly living in these tumultuous, weird times because of the climate crisis. And to me, that's a real call to action of don't let this get any worse than it needs to be. Life can truly get disrupted. There's a quote about the climate crisis is something you see on your phone in worse and worse ways until it comes home. You open up your phone and see a mudslide in Germany or forest fires in Colorado, and one day it's not on your phone, it's outside your front door. So that to me, there are others, pests getting worse. I hate mosquitoes already. I mean, God forbid mosquitoes get powered up. Extreme heat, summers are getting less and less livable. It's just harder to be a person outside during the summers. And that's for me, who has, the privilege of being able to stay indoors. God forbid folks, are actually, having real health effects from the extreme heat.
Yeah.
There's the famine, there's the global climate, migrations. There's all the things that would just sort of disrupt the world order as it stands because of the climate crisis. That makes me afraid. But I would say of all of them, sea level rise and extreme weather, sort of Charleston specials of things we have to worry about.
Yeah, totally. And I think that, we're starting to see some of this play out. Like I've seen, mentioned warming, water temperatures. Like I read recently that, we sort of crossed the ocean acidification tipping point as it relates to coral reefs, and that has ripple effects obviously throughout ecosystems, but also economies. I found that pretty alarming. I'm seeing from a angler's perspective, we're seeing shifts in migratory patterns in fish species because they're following the temperature, and so that brings up a kind of a bigger conversation around, okay, well, how do we properly manage our fisheries for climate resiliency? Like, how are we taking that into account? And to an even bigger picture, that's happening right now is defunding NOAA, which is a little crazy to me.
A little bit.
Yeah, right. I mean, they predict our hurricanes. They're very influential in that, providing data and information and resources. And I'm kind of tying this back to the fishing side of things, but it's totally relevant for everything in Charleston. They also provide grants and funding for habitat restoration, and they also help manage our fisheries so that we have healthy and abundant fisheries, which millions and millions of people rely on for their source of protein. So it like all of this is interconnected, right? But it seems to me that the overarching issue that we're trying to solve here is climate change with all of this.
Right. There's a way of looking at the climate crisis as a wake-up call, as, we already sort of had these consumptive, destructive systems that were causing various environmental harms that were sort of not really working for everyone. And climate change is just an unignorable thing that is a consequence of that. So we're being called, I would argue, to really look at rebuilding these systems in a way that is ecologically sound, is equitable, and actually works for everyone. That's sort of the make lemonade from lemons way of looking at it, I think, is, climate crisis is scary, is an intimidating thing. There's grief that has to be processed with it too, of, we've already lost a decent amount of ecology in ways in which the world used to work, and we were going to lose some more. But once you process that, I think is also sort of a kind of gift, a call to action to really reevaluate the ways in which we've built this modern world in a way that could be much better.
Yeah. Well, tell me, so with Charleston Climate Coalition, let's talk a little bit about some of the campaigns that y'all are working on right now for folks who are interested in engaging with y'all and getting active. Because I think first and foremost, the biggest lever that any individual can pull is to get active on, at a policy level, contacting your elected officials, right? That's something that every person can do, voice your opinion so that things can change at a policy level. But then there's just different things that are happening locally. And I think that y'all do such a great job of bringing some of these issues and shining a light on them that maybe people aren't even aware of. So can we maybe talk a little bit about some of the programs that y'all are involved in right now that are affecting us?
Absolutely. Yeah, we do try to be a sort of clearinghouse for all these different things you can do, all these different ongoing campaigns or projects. One of which is a fun one, the Charleston Just Corridor or Eco Corridor. That was something that was incepted by this group here at the Marsh Project, who do a lot of great work in terms of supporting urban greenery and marshes. They're based in Halsey Creek and Wagner Terrace, but they had this vision of connecting the 3 remaining tidal creeks on Charleston's Peninsula, Halsey, New Market on East Central, and then Gadsden's Creek down on the west side, with an urban eco corridor full of native plants and trees and various amenities and bike lanes and something that's really pollinator friendly and something that's really human friendly. And that to me is also a great climate resilience action. Green infrastructure through this framework of an eco corridor is really exciting to me.
Yeah.
So one of our campaigns right now, our projects right now, has been this Green the East Side initiative. We got a grant, Climate Mayors Fund, with the city to put in a bunch of green infrastructure on the east side, because we wanted the east side, Charleston's historic east side, to also be part of this eco corridor initiative. So we're putting in, I believe, 5 rain gardens in the course of this project, on a mix of public and private land, some churches, some parks. We've been giving out a ton of native plants on the east side. We had a summer camp for kids on the east side to learn about some Gullah-Geechee plants, as well as how green infrastructure works. And so that's been really fun. That's been a project that's been really enlivening to do and connects to this, I think, really fun, exciting venture that is the Eco Corridor. And that's something that if you live on the peninsula, it's easy to get involved. You can go to the Marsh Project's website and say, I'll join the Eco Corridor, and then it can happen piecemeal. It's sort of like almost a anarchist thing you can do of just like put in native plants in your own yard and your own front bioswale. And then the city is also working on trying to push that project along, which is exciting.
Cool.
So,
and what are some of the climate benefits from sort of this green infrastructure of putting in planting native plants and pollinators and stuff like that?
So there is some degree of carbon sequestration that happens when you put in green infrastructure, trees especially. Trees are sort of the best climate technology we've been given, and they're completely natural. They take in carbon dioxide, put out oxygen, they sequester it. Depending on the kind of tree, they can also provide food. They provide shade and they absorb water, which are the 2 things we will need for extreme rain events and for extreme heat days. So from a climate perspective, trees are our friends and allies. So the tree part of that is huge. With just having greenery, one thing with any urban environment is there's so much impervious surface. There's so much concrete, asphalt, things that the water will just cool on and collect. And that land, a lot of it used to be maritime forest. Naturally, it would be absorbing a ton with a ton of root systems and ecological benefits. But the way we're building our cities right now is not accounting for that. So if we want to be serious about not having a waterlogged downtown Charleston, I do think we need to be, it's already pretty soaked. having these native plants be a part of our built landscape.
Yeah.
All these monoculture lawns could be full of native plants. Roofs, green roofs are something we're really trying to push more in Charleston. That's a lot of impervious surface. You look top down view of Charleston, so much that are roofs, and some percentage of those could hold rain absorbing native plants. And so there's a resilience aspect to it pretty powerfully. And then to a lesser degree, there's also a greenhouse gas reduction aspect of sort of that carbon sink bit.
Yeah.
Also marsh protection. Marshes are huge carbon sinks. So anything we do for the health of our urban marshes is really important.
Yeah. Yeah, that's and to connect what you're saying, Belvin, just for folks listening, like when I think about green roofs and our marshes and our fisheries, like all of this is interconnected, right? So like the way that I explain it in terms of like sustainability is like a fiddler crab and a redfish and the moon are interconnected, right? Because full moons, new moons, we get redfish in our marshes that feed on these crabs. And so there's that interconnected piece. And the same way that if we have an increase in rain and if we were to increase green roofs and impervious surfaces, roll all of this stuff into our marsh, which the crabs and the fish and everything are eating, like that's how that's interconnected. So it's like these, like they're everyone thinks that these climate solutions are like, I don't know, for some reason people think they're pretty wild, but this is just simply saying like, hey, this is good for nature and this is good for us. I don't know. I feel like that's something that gets politicized where you're like, no, these are just better way. Like these seem to be better for nature and better for us and better for wildlife and better for plants. Like that gets lost, I feel like a lot.
Yeah, I think sometimes in the conversation, people center greenhouse gases so much, and that is, there's the fundamental driver of climate change. We're trapping heat in the atmosphere, but that's up in the atmosphere, and we're down here. So I think, making it clear that these climate solutions are also just sort of, a more interconnected or intelligent way of designing human systems that will make life better and more livable and healthier and cleaner.
Yeah. And who doesn't want more nature? I don't know.
Yeah, it's good for you.
Yeah, right. All right. So what are some of the other initiatives that y'all are involved with that you're working on right now?
So another one we're working on right now, there is a potential half-cent transportation sales tax here in Charleston County. So right now we are paying a cent on the dollar for this transportation sales tax from previous years. It was 2 half cents that added up. And what that funds is most of our bus system, CARTA, because I believe the state government has not increased the funds that they give to public transit since the 80s or something like that. So it's really dependent on this. You're also paying towards road projects, major road projects. It's a couple $1 billion all told that's built up over usually like a 10 to 25 year process for all these transportation priorities. If you remember, if you're around in Charleston for the 526 debate that came to another head last year, the extension of 526 is something that it was like 25 years of attempts from the county government to get that last leg of 526 built. To environmental chagrin. And the last transportation sales tax they tried to pass would have had the only priority project be the $3 billion extension of 526 to Johns Island, which we opposed for a whole number of reasons. And as a result, that transportation sales tax did not pass. But there are things that are paid for by that tax, like public transportation, bike infrastructure, et cetera, that we think are really important. The biggest climate action you can take on a local level, systemically, I would argue, of all of them, is finding ways to really reduce how many trips people are taking by car and give alternatives instead of walk and bike infrastructure and public transportation. Here in Charleston, we have a higher than average by capita car usership, more vehicle miles traveled than the average, because we're kind of sprawling and we don't have good public transportation, and we're really far behind on our bike infrastructure. And there's a ton of work to be done with these things. So right now, the work that we're doing is we have a coalition of some other groups. We're working with Charleston Moves. We're working with the East Coast Greenway Alliance, working with the Coastal Conservation League, as well as a number of sort of other groups on a set of priorities for if the county puts on the ballot a half-cent transportation sales tax, how can we get the good version? How can we get the version that really prioritizes public transportation, walk and bike infrastructure, greenbelt funding? Greenbelt funding is also a part of this. And they've been trying to reduce how much our Greenbelt program, which is a really effective way of protecting land here in the Lowcountry. They've been trying to reduce it each time. So we want to get that Greenbelt number up too. So basically, go ahead.
So for those listening who might not be familiar with the Greenbelt funding, what does that entail?
So the Greenbelt program in Charleston County is one where there is this council of folks who are overseeing a program of protecting public land. There is a fund that we have to buy up this land as then for public use. Then it can be like a walkway, and it's a connectivity thing too. Ideally, the Greenbelt program would extend to all these different corridors, and so you have these greenbelts throughout the county you can travel through. And it's been pretty extraordinarily effective, I would argue, at conserving land here in the Lowcountry. The Greenbelt program does a lot, and it relies on this half-cent sales tax to function. And so that's sort of the non-transportation thing packaged within it.
Yep. And we've got a bike path. So I live in West Ashley, and we use the bike path. I bike my 2-year-old to her daycare 3 days a week on that bike path, and it's great. And it gets a ton of use, and it's awesome. But now I'm excited that we're actually getting a bike path that's going to extend that to downtown, right?
Yeah, that pedestrian bike bridge over the Ashley is huge. I don't think there's anything else like it in South Carolina. And it's sort of if you build it, they will come thing. People would love to get around by bike for their shorter trips. It just doesn't feel safe in so much of Charleston. We have, vanishingly little in the way of bike lanes in downtown Charleston, protected bike lanes. So it's just building out that network, which our allies Charleston Moves are very proactive about doing. And imagine if we had a good chunk of change that every year municipalities could pull from to be building and implementing protected bike lanes across the county. It'd be a game changer. So that's sort of the idea with this campaign is, if we can thread this needle, if we can get something on the ballot that really truly prioritizes modernizing Charleston transportation infrastructure, then we're setting ourselves up for success, or at the very least, charting a course past our status quo of people move here and they're like, what is going on? Why is public transportation so bad? Why is there so little bike infrastructure? They're kind of baffled. They come from other places. And so having this county funding go through would be huge. It depends on the right thing going on the ballot. And so right now we put out the list of priorities. And if you are in the Charleston County area, there is a survey that is out on different priorities for the transportation sales tax. I recommend you fill out that survey, because that is a way to weigh in to say, please prioritize these things. So ideally on the ballot next year, there is something we can actually fight for and not against.
And can people get access to that survey through y'all's website, or where do they go for that? So
yeah, you can find it on the website.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So Belvin, what one of the things that I know that, are there any other initiatives that y'all are working on that you want to cover?
I've been saving the best for last, Rick.
I know. This is the one that I'm like, let's dive into this, because this is interesting to me. So go right ahead.
Our main campaign right now, because it's, I would argue, of huge importance, is Dominion Energy and Santee Cooper two of our three monopoly state utilities, are looking to build a massive gas plant on the Edisto River and a new gas pipeline that would cut through the East Basin to fuel it. It would be one of the biggest gas plants in the country if built, and it'd be over the bones of an old decommissioned coal plant. So in this community that already dealt with the air pollution of a coal plant, they'd be right back to having a polluting plant right in their backyard. So our work right now as the Charleston Climate Coalition is to work in coalition with all these other green groups that also oppose this gas plant. That's Southern Environmental Law Center, Conservation Birds of South Carolina, Coastal Conservation League, Sierra Club, Friends of the Edisto, and to push the temperature locally. Because if this sails through, it's a climate disaster. All of the climate goals that, say, the Charleston County has rely on the grid getting greener and greener, and putting this massive investment in gas on the books would kind of blow that up. What I think people might not realize is that natural gas, methane gas, is about as polluting for the climate as coal. For a while, there's been this narrative of it being a bridge fuel, a transition fuel. We'll get to renewables, but first we have to do this much better than coal option. But for a decade now, there have been studies coming out saying that, if you actually look at the full life cycle of the energy that's produced from gas, from the fracking to the pipelines to the burning up at the facilities, it's as polluting as coal in terms of warming effects.
Well, not to mention just like it just inherently, that fracking, they're injecting like chemicals into rock to get gas out of it that's going to pollute ground, like inherently without knowing anything. Injecting chemicals into groundwater can never end well. There's just no way that is a good idea ever.
Right. It's so short-sighted. It's harming this land for generations in the name of something that is currently profitable for utilities in the Southeast because they get a guaranteed return on investment for infrastructure built. That's just the model we have with our private company monopoly utilities is, hey, if you build this $3 billion, actually right now the price tag is a $5 billion gas plant, then you'll get a guaranteed return on investment in percentage form. So the bulkiest, most expensive build out is something that's best for them, despite the fact that maybe it's not the best thing for our grid. Maybe it's not the best thing for the ratepayers who are going to be footing that bill. But that's the incentive structure we have set up. So it will take, I think, really concerted public pressure to stop this thing. And so that's what the Charleston Climate Coalition is working on, is the public pressure.
Yeah. And like, so, and a couple of things, at least in my opinion, to put it in perspective, is that any new development should be focused on energy development, that is, should be focused on making the transition to more renewable or innovative technologies, not fossil fuel based energy of any kind, right? That's I hate to say it like, I don't hate to say it like this. It just is what it is. That's 20th century thinking. Like that's dated. That is no longer the way. And the reality is that the cost of renewable energy is as competitive with others, if not more.
Right. People, I think we need to catch up in perception. Maybe 10 years ago, renewables were getting competitive. Maybe one day they'll be there. In 2025, they are there. Financially, it is just as feasible. I analogize it to lead paint. For a long time, we used lead paint in this country because it was useful, because it was fast drying, effective, and it was poisoning us, and it was horrible for us. Benjamin Franklin has a letter in 1700s about beware lead paint. And it was only in the 60s that we stopped using lead paint. And if you were the person building a lead paint factory in the 60s, you were in trouble. And that's sort of what it feels like to me, building a massive new gas plant in the 2020s is like you're building a lead paint factory.
Right. And where it's located is of particular relevance because it's within the ACE Basin,
Yep.
which organizations like Coastal Conservation League and all sorts of other conservation nonprofits, whenever they work, I don't know when it was, I think in the 90s maybe, they worked to get all that land protected. It's like thousands and thousands of acre of untouched, undeveloped land and ecosystem that is valuable, and they want to put it right next to it and then run a pipeline through it. Is that right?
Yeah, so the Ace Basin is a hugely important watershed. The Edisto River is a really pristine water body. It's like a really beautiful major water body in South Carolina. And if you look at a map of the Ace Basin, towards the southern part, you have the land that we've successfully protected. A lot private, a couple public. We sort of have all these chunks of protected land. But the Ace Basin is bigger than just that protected land. So if you go north, you have what is the center of the Ace Basin is a watershed, but not protected land yet. That is exactly where they want to put this gas plant. And to fuel that gas plant, they would need to put in a new gas pipeline that go from Georgia, cut through the Ace Basin, smack dab in the river on the Edisto River. So there are all sorts of, I would argue, A, don't build gas plants in the 2020s. B, even if you are, this is a terrible spot for it. This is right there on the river. So all of the damage that would come from the build out, from the runoff, and all the air quality issues from the particulate matter that's being put out. The Southern Vermont Law Center just put out a study on the health impacts of this plant if it's built, and it would be significant air quality damage to Colleton County surrounding it. So Walterboro, especially Candies, which is this smaller, poor community, that's where they want to put it. And then you have the damage from the pipeline. Gas pipelines, maybe not as inherently scary as an oil pipeline, but they're still extremely destructive to build. You are hollowing out the land in that swath that you put on to put in the gas pipeline. You're using eminent domain to seize private property in the path. And it is dangerous. Every 4 days in the US, there is a pipeline explosion, which is just an insane statistic. If you look at the statistics on pipelines, it's because there's so many that, that can be true and it's not happening in your backyard all the time. But it's safe until it's not. There are all these compressor stations too that they have to put up around there that will put off air quality issues that could themselves have an accident. And this is pristine land. This is really valuable watershed that then goes down to the Edisto, to the Low Country, Edisto Island. It's ecologically a really disturbing prospect too.
Right. Yeah.
Like
that alone. Right. Like even for some reason, let's just say that you're a climate denier. For ecological and conservation purposes, this is a bad idea also. It's like, this is all around a bad idea.
Yeah, well, and financially, the thing about gas is that we import a lot of it, and it has a fluctuating price. You can look at the graph of the price of methane gas in the last 10 years, and there's a huge spike when the war in Ukraine starts. And the thing is that utility companies can pass on that spike to us, the ratepayers. They don't have to worry about that. But if you worry about your energy bill, which is, at least in my case, constantly creeping up, then I think gas is a kind of a risky investment, is a poor choice. And this at a time when we can have American homegrown energy, our own backyards, with solar and batteries. I've been doing research because of this on what other states have been doing in the last couple of years. And you have states like Colorado and Texas, of all places, investing hugely in solar and battery facilities. And the battery part's important because that is what keeps the energy when it's not sunny outside. That's sort of that base load. You can get that base load effect with good battery facilities because the technology is now there.
Which is huge.
Here in South Carolina, we have Dominion lobbying pretty hard to get away with this gas plant because it's the bulkiest and most expensive build out, and it wouldn't be done for at least a decade. That's one last thing that just drives me nuts, is that the reasoning why we need to build this big gas plant is because data centers are coming in, the demand for energy is rising, so we have to do something now. We have to do something fast. We have to be decisive. And then it's an incredibly laborious build-out process. This won't be online for another decade. And solar can be ready from tip to tail in 3 years.
Right.
It's there's an irrationality to it that really sticks in my craw.
Yeah. As it should. So do y'all have? I know that y'all have a petition, right?
We have a petition out. We'd love for folks to sign that, both to say, oh, we had got this many people who signed. Right now we're over 700, but we'd love to get to 1,000 and beyond. That's nice. But what's really helpful about petition is just means we can then reach out to you when there is an opportunity to show up. We suspect that the utilities will be applying to the Public Service Commission, which is sort of the judicial body that rules over energy cases here in South Carolina. They think they'll be applying for the gas plant permission in December sometime. And so we want to be ready when that happens to say, hey, this is unacceptable. This should not be happening. And we need people power to do that. We need people who can bring a sign, come to a press conference. We have some creative actions we're planning. At the time of air, this will have already happened, but come to this next time we do it. The trial of Dominion Energy is a sort of public theater mock trial piece that we're doing that'll list out all of Dominion's quote unquote crimes against planet and people, all the things they've done that have been really irresponsible to what I would argue is their duty as keeper of our energy, in the form of a mock trial. There'll be witnesses and the prosecutor and a Dominion puppet. And it should be really fun and interesting, but also inform people pretty thoroughly about everything they're up to with the gas plant and other issues with the utility. We're working on a folk protest concert, Songs to Save the Edisto. So, sort of Joan Baez 60s protest song vibe. That should also hopefully help grow the movement against this. Yep. We're trying to be creative. We haven't talked about that yet with the Charleston Climate Coalition, but I see creative activism as sort of a central part of what we do, because I think you have to be novel in this day and age to really get the momentum you need. And also, I think you have to be attentive, constantly shifting, experimenting, because these are all live issues. The world is changing so quickly and so constantly. You have to really move with it in a nimble and fun way. And then the fun part, it being, you can bring a lightness to this work. There can be joy in this. There can be play in this, because that counterbalances the darkness of the reality. We can't just spend all of our time being sad about the climate crisis. We can recognize the darkness of that and counterbalance that with being together and having these sort of fun, playful, interesting, community growing events.
And is that one of the, I was going to ask, what gives you hope, right? Because it's like, I live in this world from a little bit of a different perspective, working primarily with businesses, but it's still you kind of feel like you're getting hit over the head a lot with bad news. And so I was curious if it's that creative or what is it that gives you hope about the climate crisis and solutions?
There are a couple of things. Sometimes I like to think of the age that we're entering as the solar age. And it's a time of chaos and trials, but also a time of adventurism and heroes. Now, this is something that we can rise to. And that excites me, that sort of framing of it. Like I mentioned, mending the world with this as the impetus, with this as sort of the call to action. Nature's ability to heal itself gives me hope. Any story that is, 50 years ago, this valley was environmentally ruined, and we just left it alone, and look at how it's coming back. I think the earth has tremendous capacity and ability to heal itself if we just give it the space and the care. So I think there's that. And then this is just sort of a Zen thing. But there's a Chinese proverb that I have been quoting incessantly, especially the last month. The story goes, there's a man who has a farm who is saving up and saving up and saving up to buy a horse. And when he finally buys a horse, it runs away. And everyone in the village says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That's so awful." And he says, "We'll see." And then he sends his son after the horse, and the son comes back, and the son has two horses. There's a wild horse that came with him. Everyone goes, "Oh, that's so wonderful. You must be so happy." And the man says, "We'll see." And then the son's riding the wild horse, and he's knocked off the horse, and his leg breaks. And everyone goes, "Oh, that's so awful. I'm so sorry for you." And he says, "We'll see." And then the army comes by to conscript soldiers, and they don't take the son because his leg is broken. And so on and so on. The idea that you don't know the future, you don't know where things are going, and that all you can do is sort of meet the moment. I find that comforting. I really do. Any doomism just feels presumptive and egotistical to me. Yeah, we're in rough shape, but we don't know the future. That's why it's the future. It's unwritten. And to be able to participate in the writing of the future, to be able to advocate on the local level, make concrete changes, see building block by building block, piece by piece, the ways in which you were building a better climate future, that's heartening. So those are a couple of the ways in which I sort of try to move with the hardness of the moment and find that hope space.
Yeah, I love that. And that's such a good way to look at it, is that, you really can focus on what you can control, and some of the things that you can control are the actions that you take, and what kind of actions those are will determine the future that you talk about, right? And so those are important things that you can do. So I really love that. Well, Belvin, where can Charlestonians, or maybe even people that don't live in Charleston that want to support your work, or maybe ask you questions about how you got climate action plans passed and all the good work you're doing, where can folks find more info on Charleston Climate Coalition?
So our website, charlestonclimatecoalition.org. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. On Instagram, we're at CHS Climate Coalition. You can email us at charlestonclimatecoalition@gmail.com. Because, we'd love to hear from folks. We'd love to have folks get involved. We have monthly meetings. This month, we'll probably be pushing it to December to have our one holiday meeting. But generally, we have these at the end of the month, monthly meetings, usually the last Thursday of the month, to sort of give this public space for folks to congregate. We're also now at the Sunday Brunch Farmers Market at the Poorhouse every Sunday, if you are a Charleston person. And so you can just see us there. The idea is, I want that to be a sort of a connective tissue piece of come chat with us, see what there is to be done, volunteer with us. We have people volunteering at those tables, building our events with us, doing research. There's a lot to be done, and I do think you feel much better about the climate crisis when you are just personally doing what you can. It feels less like this overwhelming abstract thing when you go, well, yes, there is a lot that is concerning, but I am doing what I can. I am helping push along this piece of it. I am in this patch of the quilt that is the global campaign for climate liberation. And that is a way of sort of quelling the climate anxiety, grief, depression, etc., that can come with this stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that. I want to do what I can to shine a light on the work y'all are doing, and thanks for everything that y'all have done and are doing to protect the place that we love, which is Charleston, from effects of climate change by engaging with ordinary people and a variety of shareholders, right? And in Charleston to work towards a more sustainable future. So thank you for all your good work.
Yeah, of course, Rick. Right back at you. And thanks for having us.
All right. Well, special thanks to Belvin and everyone at the Charleston Climate Coalition for all they're doing for climate action here in Charleston, South Carolina. If you are a Charleston angler concerned about the impacts of climate change, I would strongly encourage you to sign the petition to oppose the methane gas plant that Dominion Energy and Santee Cooper trying to build on the Edisto River, and get involved with the Charleston Climate Coalition. Thanks for listening to the Sustainable Angler Podcast, and if you like what you're hearing, please consider leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. It's a chance to tell me what you like about the podcast and helps others discover it too. Thanks for listening.